What's up, Eugene? First guy in the chat today. Let me change that angle a little bit there. All right, let's see what we got here. Eugene with the Let's Go Kyle. Eugene, I'll have some updates for you probably soon about what we talked about on the phone last week. So stay tuned for that privately, obviously. Okay, so I thought today, guys, would be a good time. Obviously, we're going to give everyone some time. There's the Senate confirmation hearings for the cabinet is going on. People are busy. It's a busy day. But I thought we'd probably talk today in particular about the 27 class, and if you're in that class or you have a son in that class, kind of what the mindset should be for this summer and stuff like that, and just kind of what your game plan should be. So we're going to get into that. Remember, guys, scan this QR code if you're looking for help in the recruiting process. Okay, if you're looking to work with one of our advisors or myself. Wally Pfeiffer, what? No Canes yet? Yeah, I know, it's strange, right? Eugene, sweet, you're the man. Kyle, nasty. Eugene, I don't know if you know, but that is actually was a nickname of mine from my teammate Brent Suter, who's been in the big leagues now for like 10 years. It's crazy. I had him on the show on a pre-recorded. We have that on my YouTube channel. Check it out. But he's pitched the big leagues for 10 years. He was basically, we're teammates for the majority of our minor league careers. And he used to call me Renin Nasty. That's what he would say. So that made me think of that. Wes, just go into draft and you don't have to do all that schoolwork BS. Wes, are you the guy that's been commenting on all my videos about how you're going D1 big time and all that stuff? I've enjoyed your comments, I will say that. But I appreciate it, Wes. We're waiting for people to get, we can't start the actual show until, like Wally said, until Canes makes an appearance in here. We just can't. We're going to look at maybe some of the preseason player rankings for just college baseball in general, different positions, stuff like that. And we're going to look at, we were talking recruiting and who's got the best recruiting staff in the country and stuff like that. And I talked to you guys kind of a little bit about the nuance of it. But there's a great story from D1 Baseball's Joe Healy about Duke and how Chris Pollard and obviously Josh Jordan, who's now at LSU, really came in and just kind of transformed that program into a consistent regional, super regional type team. And really the funny thing is this, guys. Wes, do they drug test in JUCOs? To be honest, man, I don't know what the drug testing protocol is in junior college because I didn't play at junior college. I played at Georgia Tech. So I don't know what the drug testing protocol is in junior college. I don't know what they test for, stuff like that, but I don't know. Why are you asking that question, Wes? I'm interested. I'm trying to figure out what this picture is on your profile here. All right, so here's a fun fact for you guys. Let me turn my music down. This is way too loud. Okay. Actually, I want to know, can you guys hear this music? Probably can't hear it, but so here's a fun fact for you guys. And I guess we'll go into this a little bit, but it's from D1 Baseball. Like I said, D1 Baseball's Joe Healy. And I think some really interesting stuff in this article about Duke and how they, Chris excuse me, Chris Pollard and Josh Jordan really came in and kind of transformed the program. So much of Duke's baseball history prior to the arrival of head coach Chris Pollard was tied up in what the Blue Devils couldn't do given some of the constraints that come with doing business at an institution like Duke. But now, with the sands of college baseball and college athletics more broadly shifting under our feet daily, some of those constraints have been mitigated and others have perhaps even become selling points for a program that has quickly become one of the most consistent in the ACC. Wes, just go to JUCO and take gear so you can then go D1. Yeah, don't do that, guys. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right, so listen to this. I knew it was a long stretch, but I didn't realize it was this long. The last time Duke went to a regional before 2016, when Chris Pollard got them there, was 1961. 1961. That's 55 years. Duke went straight without getting to a regional. So think about just how, bottom of the barrel Duke was for a long time, especially in the ACC. And again, when I played Duke in college and from 2011 to 2013, Marcus Stroman was there. They had good players, but it just seemed like overall depth-wise, they had a few stars, but that was basically it. And to think that like Marcus Stroman never played in a regional, even thinking back, I'm like, that can't be right. But that's the situation that Duke was in before Chris Pollard got there. And a lot of it was like and this is kind of similar to Boston College, where very expensive, super high academic. Like for Georgia Tech, for example, it's different because it's a public institution and it's super high academic, but the tuition to get into Georgia Tech way different because it's a public school. So it's not a private, super high academic school that's upwards of $100,000 for some people to go. And so at Duke, for the longest time, the idea was like, all right, it's too academically rigorous. The requirements are too rigorous. And even if we give a guy a 25% scholarship, he's still paying a bunch of money to go to school here, where he gets an offer from an in-state school, public school or whatever. Then you're fine, right? You're not paying that much in scholarship money. Wes, can you go to JUCO for 1 year and then get drafted? Yes, you can. You're draft eligible every year in junior college. That's kind of, you don't see it a lot, but you do see like for example, Bryce Harper, he graduated high school early, went to a junior college, got drafted second overall. You don't see it happen a whole lot of guys. Typically, like the top end guys, if they don't get drafted or get a kind of signing bonus that they want, they end up going to a 4-year school. They end up going to their school they've been committed to. So you don't see a lot of like super high end guys, generally speaking, go JUCO to get drafted after 1 year. I know like a long time ago, like my dad, for example, he got drafted out of high school by the Yankees, and they told him, if you go to junior college, we can draft you again next year, maybe a little bit higher, because it was in like the 14th round or something. And then he went to junior college, St. Pete in St. Pete, Florida, and got drafted after his freshman year by the Expos. So you're definitely draft eligible after 1 year of junior college. So, and yet Pollard succeeded in spite of that. The 2016 regional appearance came in his 4th season on the job. 2 years later, he had the Blue Devils in a super regional, and since then they have missed regionals just once in 2022. So, like, Chris Pollard gets there. Again, what have I told you guys with head coaches? Like, they need probably 3 years to get a real sense of what kind of impact they're having on the team as far as recruiting and the type of players they're able to get on campus. And so it took Chris Pollard 4 years, gets to a regional, and then like ever since then, it's been a regional team every year. So Duke went from not making a regional for 55 straight years to being a consistent regional team, and a team that's really like a team that you definitely, if they're not hosting a regional just because of the issues they have with they are doing renovations to their stadium now. because they played in the Durham Bulls Stadium for so long. I mean, when I was playing against Duke, I think we played once at their actual field on campus, but every other time we played at the Durham Bulls Park. So that has been an issue for Duke as well. Is just facilities on campus are not nearly what they are across the ACC. And so, I mean, you think about what Chris Pollard's done at Duke, guys, and you see him come up in all these when a coach gets fired or whatever, or a coach takes another job, he's always high up on the list of potential candidates for a bigger job than Duke. And the reason for that is he turned Duke into a top 15 team in the ACC pretty regularly, with really bad facilities, super high academics, really expensive school. So he's done a lot with less, right? He's done a lot with shaking a program that hadn't made a regional in 55 years to making them a regional team every year and making it to super regional. So that's why Chris Pollard is so highly thought of in the coaching industry for these jobs that open up, and that will, some will open up this summer. He's probably going to be on the list for him. And another reason why you see Josh Jordan, who was Pollard's recruiting coordinator for almost a decade, get the job at LSU, because man, if you can really recruit and turn Duke into that kind of program, you can definitely recruit and help us at LSU. Wes, better to go to a JUCO so you're not locked up for 3 years before you get drafted. Well, the Wes, it all comes down to, are you a guy that's going to get drafted, right? There's a lot of guys that go to JUCO and don't get drafted because they're not ready. I mean, they haven't shown scouts. And in today's era, there's only 20 rounds, right? So back when I was playing and it was 40, you go to JUCO, they may take a flyer on a few guys, but I mean, you still got to be one of the best players in the country to get. You're not just getting drafted because you're a decent player at junior college. So I wouldn't suggest making a decision about junior college because, well, I can get drafted, because yeah, you can, but the question is, are you a guy that's going to be draft worthy, or do you need to develop and stuff? And maybe JUCO is the best place for you to do that. Maybe a Division I is. It just depends. Imagine Duke getting paid $100,000 per student and they can't even have a decent baseball facility. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit confusing. Obviously with their basketball program rakes in a bunch of money every year. But yeah, they are doing a bunch of renovations that will be done, I think, right before the season starts in a few weeks, and then they have more that is coming in after the season's over. So that stadium, Duke's actual stadium on campus, is going, and they talk about it down here a little bit. So Jack Combs Field, leaps and bounds behind most of the rest of the ACC, and until last year, a part-time arrangement with the Durham Bulls. So last year, they finally played all of their games at their actual stadium. Phase 1 began on August 12th. Time opening day comes around the home game against Cincinnati. There will be new, larger dugouts in place, a new turf playing surface, and a new outfield configuration that involves the fences being brought in, among others. Phase 2 is set to include a new clubhouse and offices, a new entry plaza, improved hospitality areas. So Duke's making the necessary moves to kind of update their facilities and everything like that. Because right now, that facility really hurts them in hosting cases because there's just not a lot of seating there. Cardboard Baseball, what's up, man? Welcome back. Amazing that an expensive institution like Duke doesn't have the facilities needed for their program. Yeah, it is, man. I mean, you guys know how this is. I mean, a lot of these schools have a ton of money. They just don't want to spend it. They want alumni to donate. I mean, you think about Georgia Tech just got a bunch of renovations done in the last few years. Really expensive, like $20 million, or I think it was $15 million in renovations. And I mean, that was almost solely donated by alumni and boosters and guys like Matt Wieters and guys like Charlie Blackman and guys like Mark Teixeira, guys that made a lot of money in the big leagues. So the sad part is a lot of these renovations, not all of them, right? I mean, there's some in the SEC, like Georgia, I think is getting like $50 million worth of renovations to their stadium. I could be wrong. I think it's. I mean, it was a huge number, but some of these schools, it's like if your alumni that have made it are not willing to put up serious money, it's tough to get it done. King Creasy, my boy is the recruiting coordinator at Duke. King Creasy. Welcome to the chat, King Creasy. Welcome to the stream. Is your boy Eric Tyler or Derek Simmons? Duke's got a lot of guys on staff now. I mean, it is nice to see a lot of these teams are moving to having a bunch of coaches. Disarm did a nice Duke facilities tour recently. If you're interested in checking it out, no, I mean I've done the facilities tour at Cardboard because I've coached there and I've played there. So I mean I know what Duke's facilities are like. I mean really they're not much different. I mean they have that indoor kind of, it's not indoor, but it's kind of a covered cage area over there in left field, on the left of kind of the left field line, and like it's all right, but it's just, again, you look at all these other places in you look at all these other places across the ACC and the SEC, and you're like, this is just not up to par. Even after all these renovations are done, there's probably still going to be a good amount of work to get done. Unless I'm getting a 500,000 signing bonus, there's no way I'm getting drafted and playing in single conditions. In single conditions? Dude, do you know how good you have to be to get a $500,000 signing bonus? I don't know. Maybe Wes. Maybe you're a really good player. I don't know, but you got to be really good. Glad that I've been able to make a live stream. I've been relegated to catching up hours after your live. Good to be here with y'all. Nice, Cardboard. Appreciate you being here, man. Yeah, I mean, my schedule changed a little bit just because a buddy of mine who I played with at Georgia Tech is now the head coach at a school in Atlanta, or north of Atlanta, and asked me if I could help out with the team as kind of a, assistant coach with him. So I'm helping him out there. I mean, they're paying me to do it, so it's not like I'm doing it for free. But so I just have, like, I've moved the stream a little bit earlier in the day, so I just have time to still do it daily. But again, guys, you're looking for help recruiting process, scan this QR code above me. And also we got our ARM program right here. If you're interested in an ARM program that's really going to not only increase your velocity, but your durability and your just overall accuracy as a thrower. I used this my whole career. And it did wonders for my throwing arm. And then we have our hourly consulting up here. So if you're just a guy who, if you're young kids or something and you're starting to think about the recruiting process and want to ask a bunch of questions, like that's your QR code right there. But back to our recruiting one now. Okay, back to chat because you guys are pumping me. I like that they cut the roster size from 40 to 34, cutting the fat. Yeah, I mean, it's like, it is going to be, there are certainly going to be teams where the 34 roster, if you have a lot of injuries, it's going to hurt. But again, talking to, Butch Thompson before the ABCA, Auburn's head coach, he was like, it doesn't really matter. It's all about who gets hurt. Like if two of your weekend starters get hurt, like there's no one back there in the extras that can fill those roles. Right. So it's like, he's like, I'm not really worried about injuries. You're always just worried about the guys that get hurt. King Creasy. Thanks. Simmons, we played together at GSU. Oh, nice, man. Nice. That's awesome. MSM Liars. What's up, man? Welcome to the chat. Some good D3 schools out there with good facilities. 100%. 100%. Right. I think most people, and I think people are starting to become more aware of it, that just like there's a lot of D2, a lot of D3, a lot of JUCO programs out there with great facilities and do a great job developing guys. Single A conditions. Wes, I hate to break it to you, buddy, but if you're signing out of JUCO or as a high school guy, you're going to the complex league and you're waking up at about 5:30 in the morning every day. You ain't going to single A. You're going to that complex league where they don't even keep stats. Have fun with that. Single A is after you've shown that you're actually maybe a serviceable player. And to be honest, when I was in low A, it was like I knew every pitch that was coming because they just pitched to the count. You can look at my stats in 2013 and tell me if I did all right. Thomas More College in Kentucky uses Florence Wall's independent facility. Is that an independent league team? MSM? Good luck getting drafted out of D3. Wes, every year there are guys who get drafted out of D3. But like, here's the deal, man. If you're not good enough to play Division 1, you shouldn't go Division 1. And that doesn't mean be on the team. That means if you're not good enough to play as a freshman, you probably shouldn't go, because you're going to be put in the portal. You're going to get told, hey, like all these guys got told in end of fall practice who had been on campus for 2 months. They said, hey, you're not going to play, so you probably should go in the portal. Right? That's the reality of Division 1 now. So you're saying that about Division 3, but again, if you go to a Division 3 and play really well, maybe you can transfer up. But if you go to Division 1 and you don't play and you get cut after 3 months, you're going down. Right? You're not transferring to another D1, or at least it's not going to be on the same tier. I'm a first-year coach at a local middle school here in Clarksville, Tennessee. This is the first time in 6 years we've had a team. This has been an eye-opening experience. Man, I got to hand it to you, Cardboard, because middle school, man, it's like herding cats still at that point. It's a little bit better, but like the high school guys, you got to get on them every once in a while because they're high school kids. But generally speaking, the guys that are on the varsity team are they want to play in college, they want to win it, they want to go as far in the state tournament as they can. So it's a little bit easier to get those guys motivated. MSM Liars West, if you crush it, you will be seen. 100%. 100%. MSM Liars did it. Oh, it is the independent facility? Okay, yeah. Bruss 813, welcome to the chat, man. With college NIL and payments, why go pro if it's not a first rounder? Well, you have to understand is that like the vast majority of kids at the Division 1 level are not getting NIL money, right? It's really kind of the really good players in the ACC and the SEC and the guys that are transferring up who've done well at lower levels, but the vast majority of guys are not on any kind of significant NIL. And so if you're a draft guy and you're going to get, like Wes brought up, 500,000, you probably want to take that, because this is the other thing, guys, especially for hitters. It's not so much as big a deal for pitchers anymore, but like there is a thing called aging out of the game. And, the older you wait to sign a professional contract, and again, like I wasn't physical enough as a high schooler, but, by the time I was a junior in college, I was ready to go to pro ball. And so again, it's like, it's not really about, most guys aren't making decisions based on NIL payments. There's a very rare, very, very, very small percentage of guys who are getting significant money from NIL. And maybe it's a decision for them, but just the vast majority of guys, it's not even a conversation. Do you think this portal thing is overblown? Not every D1 school can cut a player and expect a transfer. No, it's not overblown, Bruss. I mean, there was quite literally over 1,000 baseball players that were cut from their 25 scholarship offers this fall, and then add in an extra 1,000 that were cut from their programs after 3 months. In their fall schedule, because all these changes that are coming about in the 25 season, but it's also the portal, man. Like, this is the thing, Bruss, the reason the portal is so attractive is because now these guys know this D2 kid that balled out, like for example, at Georgia Tech, Kyle Lodis, he played at Augusta University, D2 in Augusta, Georgia. Balled out there, went to the Cape, balled out, and now he's just going to be the starting shortstop for Georgia Tech. So, like, you can go in the portal and get a stud that's from D2 or D3 or JUCO or another Division 1, and he's got 500 at-bats under his belt. He's hit 330 with 10 pumps. You know what you're getting. Whereas with freshmen, and I've talked about this a lot on the stream, with freshmen, like 60% of those guys are not going to ever be a contributor for your team. So when you bring in 15 freshmen, maybe 5 of them are going to be legit contributors to your team, 6, that with pitchers and position players. So then the rest of those guys, you know, and if it's a good class, maybe it's 8, maybe it's 9. But if it's an average class, it's like 5 or 6 guys out of 15. Wes, are D1s able to pay top players? Yes. Yeah, I mean, I know from talking to guys that probably the top tier of players in college baseball are making like 200 plus if they're at the right school. Bruss, that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't go pro unless the signing bonus was a minimum of 500K. But here's the deal, Wes. Like 500,000 is like, I think now that's like 3rd round money, maybe 4th round. So like you're one of the top 120 odd players in the country, high school, college combined. Like that's what you're saying. And I think like you're responding to Bruss, but like the reality is the vast majority of college players are not making any kind of serious NIL money. Like I know a guy who was like a pretty good pitcher and transferred to an SEC school from an ACC school, and they gave him 50,000, which that's not nothing. That's a good amount. I mean, for a college kid, that's a lot of money, but it's not. I mean, if he got offered 200,000 in the draft, he would have signed, no question. So it's like 500,000 to me, that's a lot to be going, well, I'm not signing unless I get that. I led the country in hits, hit 400 in ACC play my junior year, and I was 8th round, got like 150,000. So it's tough to get 500,000 in the draft. Very correct. Most players getting drafted are between 18 and 21 years old. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, generally speaking, yeah. I mean, I don't know what you're saying with that. You know, you can get drafted out of high school and you can get drafted as a junior, or as long as you turn 21 within a month of the draft. So now with the draft being in July, if you have a birthday in August, like you can be draft eligible. Are showcases really worth it? Does high school play still speak for itself? Unfortunately, high school, like school ball, does not, you know, most guys don't give that any credit when evaluating. Now, it's one thing if you're evaluating a pitcher, because I've always said this, MSM, like pitching is the easiest thing to project because stuff plays, generally speaking, right? Stuff plays. But if you're watching a hitter against high school competition and the pitcher is throwing like 82, you may really like his swing, you may really like his approach, but you still don't really know if he can handle premium velocity like on a day-to-day basis, right? And that's why travel ball is so highly recruited. It's because you are seeing, again, every kid I talk to is like, yeah, we just faced a guy throwing 93, and I'm like, there's not that many guys throwing 93. So your average guy in a travel ball circuit for a junior in high school is probably throwing like 83, 85. And then your better guys are in the high 80s, but like so many kids think, oh, that guy throws 90, that guy throws 90. It's like, no, he's hit 90 like one time in the game. He's throwing 86, 88. And this is what I try to get across to people is like when you get to like Power 4, for example, everyone's sitting 90, 92, right? Or harder. The average fastball at the Power 4 level last year was, I think, 91. So it's a little bit overblown how hard people are throwing. But again, it's different when someone's sitting 91 versus touching 91. It looks totally different. And I think kids get that confused big time. They think, oh, this guy throws 90. It's like, no, that's his like top end on his range. He doesn't throw 90. He throws 87 and he hits 90 like twice in the game, which is not the same thing at all. It's not even close. Okay, let's get to some of these comments now. Let me pull this stream down for a second now. Okay. You absolutely have to go to Showcase if you want to get noticed, and you have to perform well, or else you're just wasting your money. 100%, if you're not good and you go to a Showcase, it's not doing anything for you. What the Showcases are good for, excuse me. What the Showcases are good for, guys, is having those metrics from a trusted source. So when coaches are looking at a player, and I'm talking to a coach and I say, hey, yeah, he was 88 to 90 in his last bullpen, and he goes and checks on perfect game, and 6 months ago he was like 86, 88. Then he's okay. Yeah, in 6 months he's gained a couple miles an hour velo. He can basically cross-reference and be like, okay, yeah, that he's done that. This is what he's saying. So that's what the showcases are good for, is getting you those objective metrics. But I talked about it yesterday. Those rankings are very generalized. So there's some guys that are going to be top 50 players in the rankings that are not good. There's guys that are number 400 that are really good, that are going to be like a stud college player, because it's just hard. It's hard to really judge that, especially on a mass scale like these guys do. Appreciate you. I rely on you. Rely on you and Coach Beatty. Nice. You and Coach Beatty, Summers, Method, and a few others for the knowledge y'all bring. There hasn't been a practice where I don't mention something I learned from y'all every day. Awesome, man. I love to hear that, dude. Keep me updated with how the team does this year, man, in these streams. I want to know wins, losses, how we're doing, developing. Yeah, but you get taxed on your signing bonus, so you're really only taking home like $375. Yeah, but you get, like, you think you don't get paid taxes on NIL money? Like, do you think that just the government just goes, oh, yeah, you keep that? Come on, man. Come on, Wes. Come on, Wes. Everybody gets taxed. If you make money, you get taxed. If you don't, you're going to be in trouble. Thank you all for what you bring to us. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Cardboard. MSM Liars. Thanks. Yeah, no problem, dude. So I wanted to get into let's look at this real quick here. If my computer will load while we wait here. Like, Wes, I understand what you're saying. What I'm just trying to be a realist, and how I work with my clients and how we as a company work with all of our clients is like, we just tell them the truth. Had a meeting with one of my guys today, performed really well, ran a 6.560 at his showcase. I tell guys, do one a year. 6.560, threw it like 83 from the outfield, so his arm is getting better. He's been through in my program. I think he's gained like 4 or 5 miles an hour so far. And exit velocity was in a good spot, but I told him, I said, listen, like, that's the part that coaches are going to look at and be like, okay, this may not be enough for us. So I said, listen, this is what we got to focus on. Like, we got to get stronger. We got to get bigger, faster, more explosive. We got to work on our bat speed, do some bat speed training, stuff like that. Buck, welcome back to the chat, man. Perfect Game and PBR rankings are also biased toward kids who play in their tournaments a lot. So there are overrated kids just because they're always there and built a rep when young. Yep. I mean, that's like the Michael Molinax kid, right? When talking to a guy around the Georgia program, I'll say it like that, is that he was so hyped up as a young kid by like Perfect Game, prep baseball, which is fine. Because, I mean, again, these guys are doing evaluations on a mass scale. It's hard to be, no one's 100% accurate, even if you watch a kid every day. And that was the sense of the Georgia program, is that he's a good, Michael Molinax was a good player, but he just was not nearly as good as I think he was looked at to be. And he was the number one player in the state of Georgia. So, or number one outfielder, maybe number one player. MSM Liars. Reason I'm asking, my son, 14, has played in some USSSA events. I've had some colleges reaching out for invites to showcases. He is a good player, but it seems early. When is good age-wise? Yeah, I mean, the college showcases for a 14-year-old, don't do them. It's not worth it right now. I do think it is valuable, like once a year, to do a Perfect Game or prep baseball showcase to get those metrics, because they do a good job with those metrics. And then, like, next year, you do another one and you see where you've developed. You see how much better you've gotten. Where's a place you've stagnated? All right, that's where we need to focus. But it gives you that frame of reference to look back and be like, okay, that work I've put in, that's what I gained. Okay, maybe I didn't get improved as much as I want. I got to work harder. Or, man, I really improved a lot here, but this place I didn't improve much. That's where I need to switch focus now to try to get that up. So that's what I would recommend. Like one of those prep baseball Perfect Game showcases a year. You don't need to do more than one. The college showcases, that's more, I think, once he's a sophomore, his sophomore, or I guess it'd be like his junior fall. So after his sophomore summer, his junior fall, get to some camps, but certainly don't need to do it yet. You don't get taxed on under the counter NIL money. Well, this isn't under the table anymore, Wes. That money goes into your bank account. Like this, they're not getting paid in cash. The money goes into their bank account. The IRS knows when money goes into your bank account, just so you know. So you can't just put 70,000 in your bank account and the IRS is going to be like, "Oh, we didn't know about that." Ask any of the adults in the chat how that works. Cameron Layfield, just started your throwing program, looking to add velo going into summer. Awesome, man. Cameron, what I always say is like really, and this is what I with players I work with and everything. It's all, and I say in the email that I send to you guys with the program, like it only works if you really go 100% in these throws, right? I'm not going to give away too much, but you got to go 100% in this program. It's if you're doing it at 70%, you're not going to see the gains you will. What I like, here's how you know this arm program works. Cameron, do the program and then go play catch, and you're gonna feel like it's shooting out of your arm. Like you're gonna be like, oh, nice and easy, and it's go shoot out of your arm. So keep me updated with how it's going though, Cameron. I'd love to hear. IRS will be coming for them if they're not claiming the income over 650. Yeah, Wally. Those of us who pay taxes and are adults, we know that anything over $650 is marked by the IRS. So, if you're getting $20,000 a month or $10,000 a month, you got to put that money somewhere. So, the day, like you're right, Wes, in a sense, back in the day, if there was just some under the table deals where you were paying guys in cash or something, sure, like you can dodge taxes with that, but they still may get you. Your point on doing showcases yearly to build up the metrics is important, also to show momentum and gains each year. I've seen kids have eye-opening bat speed at 13, but not add much after. Yeah. And again, it's not like you can go to a facility and get metrics, taken down and whatever. But the good thing about doing it at a perfect game or a prep baseball is, like I'm saying, is like coaches can see your profile and be like, okay, the metrics match up. Like you might be a kid that shows up at a camp and they don't know who you are, but you're on a 6'5" and you're throwing it like 88 from the outfield and you have a great round of BP and they're like, who the heck is this kid? And then they look you up and they're like, oh yeah, okay, so he didn't just have like an amazing day. Yeah, that's what he does. So it's just that third party that we are in a sense of elite sports advising, but it's another third party where they can go and be like, okay, yeah, this guy's been to a perfect game or a prep baseball event and the metrics match up. So that's the reasoning behind it. You get a lot of metrics down, a lot of advanced metrics, like prep baseball does advanced or acceleration, rotation, and you get a lot of value for what you do. But now again, where people go wrong is they do one like every 2 months or one every 3 months, and it's like you're not going to see. The only time I recommend doing more than one in a year is if like you're a pitcher and 6 months ago you were 78 and now you're like 87. It's like, okay, you may want to update that before the summer starts so that it's up there, and build a little hype. But besides that, there's no reason to do it more than once a year. All right, let's go to some preseason player rankings. And we'll keep answering your questions. Just keep asking the questions, guys. I love just interacting like this. Buck B for sure. He made some good points and relevant for sure. Consistent improvement important. Others being able to see it is good. Yeah, it's you're exactly right, MSM. It's making it so that other people, coaches that are doing evaluation, can see you. And it's just they do a good job with the metrics, generally speaking. I have seen some shenanigans with the way they've done 60 times sometimes, sometimes I watch a showcase if I'm there and I see the guys throwing, and then I look at the velos afterward and I'm like, that can't be accurate from what I saw. But generally speaking, they do a good job. Wally Pfeiffer, don't encourage your child or players to do showcase if they are not 100% healthy. This can hurt them as well for metrics. Yeah, 100%. I would add on to that, Wally, not just showcases, but if like you're like I want to go to that college camp and you haven't picked up a bat in like a month, or so it's not even about being healthy. It's like you better be in tip-top baseball shape going to these showcases or going to these college camps, and you certainly better not have some kind of injury, because that's gonna again. A lot of this is just your first and first impressions last. And you go to a college camp and you got a bum leg and you run like a 7.260 when you're a 6.6 usually, they're gonna be like, oh, is he hurt? What's going on? So that first impression may be the reason why you don't get recruited by that school. Wes, you put it under your mattress. Wes, I think you're just trolling. I think you're trolling. You can't put fake money that's not in cash that just appears in your bank account under the mattress. All right, so we're looking at the top 50 catchers preseason. We got Jacob Ferenc at Virginia. Obviously had an amazing year last year, 17 jacks. Redshirt senior. So crazy. Again, like a Wes. This guy hit 350 with a 1175 OPS. I did the math myself. I didn't even look. It was right next to it. 13 doubles, 17 homers, 33 walks to 47 strikeouts. Solid. 12 stolen bases. And he's back. He didn't get 500,000 in the draft. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? Caden Bodine from Coastal Carolina. Great numbers. Luke Stevenson from North Carolina. You're going to see, guys, my pick for the ACC this year is North Carolina. I think they got really two arms that were freshmen last year on the weekend rotation that really did well. They're going to be way better this year, and they got a good offense, really great pitching staff, great coaching staff around them. Jesse Wiersbicki, I knew from playing in travel ball together. We were in the same, played at the same facility. And then Bryant Gaines, their pitching coach, does a heck of a job. Jay Howell is one of their coaches as well and coached me at Georgia Tech. Grant J, Dallas Baptist, 21 jacks, junior. And right, Luke, this guy was a freshman last year, right? Freshman, he hit 284, great on base, great slugging, 14 jacks, 48 walks to 55 strikeouts. So you want that strikeout number to go down, but he's walking 48 times, so you're not as concerned about it. Really good approach. Ike Irish at Auburn, knew that was going to be there. Brooks Bryan from Troy, who had 18 jacks last year. You want to see his average come up a little bit, but besides that, 970 OPS. 85 RBIs. Does that play? 85 RBIs in like 60 games? That's pretty good, right? Easton Carmichael from Oklahoma, Jimmy Keenan from Wake Forest. Again, another guy, over 1,000 OPS, 21 doubles, 12 homers. See if we recognize anyone else here. Luis Hernandez, this guy's 10th. And all right, Wes, here's another one for you. This guy's a senior, so he was definitely draft eligible last year. 360, 1,100 OPS, 14 doubles, 23 home runs, 76 RBIs. Didn't get drafted or didn't sign. 17 walks to 50 strikeouts. That's alarming. That's walk to strikeout ratio, not good, but he's obviously productive. Henry Cook, Virginia Tech. Owen Carpoletti, Georgetown. Let's see if we have any names we recognize here a little bit more. And look at the offensive production fall off for some of these guys. Like the big boppers are like the top 10 catchers in the country, and then it's like 8 homers, 5 homers, 3 homers. This guy's 239. So this is a top 50 catcher in the country. Number 17, redshirt senior, 239 last year. Wow. Alex Sosa, 230. One of those NC State bats they're hoping makes a big jump this year, but Jumping from 230 to something productive is tough. Jackson West, Florida State, 802 OPS last year, which is not great in college. So you're seeing, guys, like how much. These are top 50 catchers in the country. Look at the offensive production, and once we get into the top, outside the top 20, 276, 816, 641. Ross Highfill at Mississippi State, redshirt sophomore, only had very few at bats last year. Really hard to be a good catcher and be a good offensive contributor because it's such a defense first position. Like you really need a guy. I think we talked about it yesterday, but like the number one thing they want in a catcher in college is a guy that can just block everything. You just can't give up pass balls. If you're a guy, if you have a catcher back there that's a vacuum, it's a huge advantage because you're just not giving up a lot of free bases. Luke Heyman, Florida, 246. Jade Melendez, 219 last year with 16 jacks, but geez, man, 219. Zach Skinner, Macon Winslow from Duke was a freshman last year. Decent campaign, nothing crazy. Hunter Carnes, Florida State, freshman. That's high praise to be in the top 50 as a freshman catcher. So, I mean, that's our top 50 catchers, guys, to look out for this spring. But as you can see, I mean, it's tough to be a catcher. Top 50 first base. Now, this is where you're going to see big numbers, right? This is where you're going to see just unfathomable numbers. If the article will actually load for me. Okay, now I just spoiled the whole list. All right, Jared Jones. Look at the first two guys. 301. Okay, 28 jacks, 76 strikeouts. I mean, that's a lot. 59 walks, though. That's solid. Really good. Tanner Thock, 27 home runs. Alex Lane, Northeastern, 18 home runs. Luke Cantwell from Pittsburgh, 330 with 10. Jacob Tobias, 320 with 18. Chris Arroyo, Virginia, junior college transfer. Chayton Krause from Dallas Baptist, 16. Luke Gaffney from Clemson. Jake Hyde from Duke. Hunter Hines, Mississippi State. Cooper McMurray, Auburn. All these guys are hitting jacks. This is the guy to watch right here, though, this year, guys. Rentaro Sasaki, the #1 prospect in high school in Japan. Skipped out on playing in the Japanese Nippon League, the NBL, or NPBL, whatever it is. And he wants to play in the big league, so he's coming to college in the States to get drafted and go play professionally in the States. Because if he went to the Japanese Pro League, he'd be under contract there for, like, I don't know the exact years, but it'd be a long time. Which is why you see a lot of the Japanese guys coming over, unless they're like a Shohei Ohtani, come over much later in their career, like Ichiro did. Remember, Ichiro came over to the States when he was like, 27, 28 years old? And he still got over 3,000 hits. I mean, it's insane. Blake Cavill, Troy, 8 jacks. Noah Sullivan, 17 jacks from Mississippi State. CJ Richmond, 380 with 13. Let me see something here. Okay, let's see. Let's keep going here. Dawson Bryce from Charlotte, 350 was 15. Man, a lot of home runs in that first baseman category, guys. So, guys, I wanted to get into, okay, for 27s, what does the mindset need to be? What does your focus need to be on? What should you be thinking this summer? The number one thing, if you don't listen to anything else, is understand that the vast majority of kids in the 27 class will not be committing this fall. That August 1st date will come. Very good chance you don't get any phone calls, and that's fine. Recruiting has slowed down dramatically in the last year with all these changes, and schools just know they're going to take their time going after the top tier 1 guys, and then they'll branch away from them after they've got a feel for if they're going to have a chance at some of them or not. The reason it's different is because when I was getting recruited, you didn't have the portal to go to. So you had to recruit your tier 1, your tier 2 players, your tier 3 players all at the same time. Because if you missed out on like 5 of your tier 2 players, now you got to go lower in the rankings to find guys. So you had to recruit everyone at the same time. Now with the portal, if they don't get some of the guys they want, they can sign a kid in the portal in the summer, or sign a guy in the 4 guys in the portal in the summer. So there's just nowhere near the sense of urgency that there had been in college baseball recruiting for a long time. So do not be expecting, even though some will, a bunch of phone calls on August 1st, maybe some scholarship offers. That's just not how it typically works for most guys. There will not be a lot of focus in recruiting on the 27 class until really later in the summer, like after June, in July. Obviously, like prep baseball futures games, there's going to be every coach in the country there. We will be there. And so just don't put so many expectations on yourself as a player that, man, if I don't hear anything from any school August 1st, like I'm going to be upset. I didn't get any calls or scholarships until my junior summer. Like I didn't have any communication with schools until my junior summer. So, and I ended up being an All-American, first team All-ACC, and everything else. So, like, everyone's process is different. That's what we tell all of our clients. Like, you may think you're better than that kid that just got a scholarship offer. Well, subjectively, evaluating is a subjective task, and another school may look at that kid and think he's really good, even though he's not. Don't worry about what's going on with him. Just worry about you and focus on you and putting in the work every day to get to where you want to be. You guys have heard me say this a bunch of times. I've never seen the hardest working player on the team not get a chance to play. I've never seen it. So when you hear kids say like, man, I'm the hardest worker on the team, and they don't care, and that you're not the hardest worker on the team. Because I can promise you every coaching staff has meetings after every practice, before practice, and we love talking about, man, did you see, and I bring him up all the time, John Giesler is going to be in the heart of the order for Georgia Tech. He's a 6th-year guy now. He was that guy. Didn't play for 2 years. Quite frankly, when he came on campus, I thought, he's a great teammate. He's a great guy. He's a good player, but he's just not really a difference maker. You're not going to see him. I just didn't foresee him getting in the lineup, and he didn't care. Like he kept put his nose to the grindstone, kept working, and now he's been a starter for 3 years. Had some injuries last year, but he's expected to be one of the better bats in the ACC this year, and that's because when he didn't play his freshman year and didn't play his sophomore year, he didn't complain or stop working hard because he thought, well, I'm not going to play. He kept working, man, and when he got that opportunity, he took advantage of it. And that's been the case for every player I've ever coached that's been the hardest worker on the team, or anybody I played with who's the hardest worker on the team. No question, right? So if you think you're the hardest worker on the team and you're not getting chances, you're probably not. And work harder. Just work harder. But for 27s, guys, it's just so important that you recognize that you still have a lot of time. Like you do not need to be in a rush. You don't need to act like, please do not act like, man, if I don't get a scholarship offer by December, I'm probably not going to get anything. I'm not very good. Dude, there's going to be so many D1 kids in the 26. There's going to be so many Power 4 kids that commit this summer in the 26 class that are juniors that are basically they're after their junior summer. That's when the majority of stuff happens for most guys. One, because just a lot of you guys as sophomores still are not physically ready for a coach to pull the trigger. Right. And especially position players. Pitchers, it's one thing. It's like I said, stuff plays. You can look at a pitcher and be like, he's 150 pounds and he's throwing 87. Like, he's got 40 pounds to put on in muscle over the next 2 years. And really, even beyond that when he gets on campus with us. So it's gonna be pretty easy for you to project that guy and be like, yeah, he's gonna be in the low 90s for sure. And you talk with people around him, maybe his travel coach, parents, and you get a feel for like, does he have a good work ethic? Okay, he's projectable. He's got solid stuff right now, and he's got a great work ethic. Yeah, that's a guy for us. Hitters, it's just way more difficult to project on a hitter. You may really like the swing, but you watch him and you think, man, he's got no hitter's instincts. His approach doesn't look great. Man, I love his swing, but he's not really dominating like I think he should. And then you may see a kid and you're like, I don't really like the swing, but man, he just hits every time I see him. So there's just like with hitting and evaluation and recruiting with hitters, there's just so much more nuance. It's insane. And that's why the recruiters that are really good at picking hitters, they have the best offenses every year. My nephew is a 27. His summer team decided instead of tournaments, they're going to 6 college prospect camps. What are your thoughts? I'd like to see him playing more games. Yeah, I mean, that is kind of a thing that people are doing now, Bill. I'm not against going to the college prospect camps, but you got to play in some tournaments. You got to play in the biggest tournaments, right? You got to play in the WWBA. You got to play in the Lake Point championships or the Prep Baseball National Championships. There's some big tournaments, and there's tournaments in the Midwest that are really good, and obviously West Coast and stuff, Northeast. But you got to play in 3 or 4 of those tournaments, I think, because guys want to see you compete against other really good teams and other good players. So at a prospect camp, the thing with a prospect camp is you may be facing pitchers that are I've heard this from a coach. It's like, man, he looked great, but the guys were throwing 78. So what he's saying is man, he hit a bomb, swing looked good, but I don't know if he's good. It was a guy was throwing 78. So that's the issue with some of the college prospect camps is you may come in, there may be a guy who's really good pitching, and then he gets taken out, and then you come up as a hitter, and you're facing some, just run-of-the-mill high school guy who's not really that committed to it, and he's throwing 80. Well, you may dominate that guy, but you're expected to dominate that guy. So as a coach, you're like, well, he should dominate that guy if he's any good at all. But how do I evaluate it was 80, but do I like the swing? Does he look like he moves well? Does he look like he has a good approach at the plate fundamentally? There's just so much, and again, I'm not trying to make it seem like recruiting pitchers is super easy, because it's not. There's nuance there as well. I just think, generally speaking, it's much easier to look at a pitcher and think, this guy can play for us. This guy can pitch for us. It's much easier to do that. With hitters, I mean, you really, and this is we're finding this out in the portal, and in high school recruiting. I mean, guys are way more likely to go after a portal bat than a high school bat, but they'll take the high school arms. So high school hitters are really getting hurt in recruiting because it's so much harder to evaluate a hitter and be confident in a hitter. I mean, I played with guys who were top 50 players in the country. They get to campus, and I'm telling you, you play with them for 2 weeks in inter squads, and you're like, this guy sucks. He's not good at all, and he was number 50 on the rankings because it's he looked really good at a showcase, and maybe he had a few good performances. But when you're facing, and this is the kicker, guys, may have even performed well against travel ball competition, but again, your average guy's throwing 83 in travel ball for a junior. So sure, you dominated guys that throw 83, 85, but you get to Georgia Tech or Auburn or whatever, and you're facing guys that are sitting 90, 91, 92, and some even higher than that. So it's just a whole nother ball game. And so many players, I think, underestimate how big of a jump it is from high school to JUCO to Division I, even Division II, even Division III. Obviously, the biggest jump's Division I, but it depends on the conference, and there's nuance there as well. But that jump is massive, massive. Like a guy that sits 91, the fastball looks different than a guy who throws 85, 88, and he's touched 91 once. It's just not the same thing at all. Wally, out here in West Coast, most of those are team camps and are invite only with premium talent, 4 to 6 prospect teams. Yeah, no, every school does it differently. There are 100%, Wally. There are schools that have like really well coordinated, really good prospect camps that like really showcase the player well. And the best ones are the ones where they get to play games, because then the coaches can all watch the games and evaluate it in the game environment. I don't really like the camps where like they're just hitting BP and they're like taking ground balls and like maybe throwing from the outfield. To me, it's like, again, you can see if the guy's good at hitting BP. You can see if he's got a good arm, but you could have seen that at a high school game or a travel ball game. And you're not really getting any indication if the guy's a competitor, if he's got a good mental approach as a hitter or a pitcher, if he's got really good command in game. Because there's some guys in bullpens, no hitter, they're like, man, they're Greg Maddux, but they get in the game and they're Rick Ankiel. Controlled games, live ABs versus premium arms, premium defense and offense. Yeah, those are the best ones. It's got to be game environment. If you're going to really evaluate guys, and I try to, sometimes you can't, but like every client that I work with, when I send them to a college camp, like I try to make sure it's like he's going to get a fair shake. And it's different. Like it's one thing if a school has never really seen you and you're still early in the process, you want to be able to play that game, because then you can really show out and get on their board right away. But if you're a guy they've seen like 5 times and it's after your junior summer and they want to get you to camp, a lot of times that's like, hey, they want to get him to a camp, just verify what they've seen, they love him, and then make an offer. So if it's like not a game camp, but he's got a good chance to get an offer, then I'll recommend it, because I'm like, yeah, they like you, they've said they love you every time I talk to them, and they've said that to you as well. Like, let's get to the camp, and like there could be an offer on the table, and that's they do that a lot. So it depends on the situation or the player too, with what camps make sense and what don't. But you're 100% right, Wally. Some of these camps are not worth going to, and some of them are really valuable and good for your development, because you're facing premium competition. Like you said, premium arms, premium defense. You better be able to hit. You better be able to handle yourself. And there's sometimes where it may not be a good idea to go to because you've looked great all summer, and they're like, well, we want you to come to a camp and do this, and it's like, okay, are you guys going to make an offer? Because I don't want him to show up and all of a sudden everyone feels differently about him because he has a bad showing or something. But most coaches, they recognize that guys have off days and everything. Eugene, he's back. They are delusional, thinking they are going D1 from high school and playing, making a roster. PG rankings can't save them. Yeah, I think I made a video a long time ago about like, as soon as you step foot on a college campus, like your perfect game ranking gets deleted. It's erased. Like no one is going, no coach, and I've coached at Georgia Tech, I've been in these meetings. Never once did we say, well, he was perfect game number 15, so he's good. Like no one said that. The thought doesn't even cross your mind. So when you step on a college campus, that perfect game ranking isn't going to do anything for you. It's going to get, like I said, again, the rankings, they do a great job with the rankings, generally speaking, on a mass scale, trying to evaluate thousands of players across the country. They do a pretty good job. They are not going to be perfect. No one would ever be perfect doing that. But you're right, Eugene, in that a lot of players think, well, I was this ranking out of high school. I was this ranking. And they think that's going to save them in your fall inter squads when you're starting out 0 for 15. No. Because in a coach's mind, oh, he's getting exposed. Like he really wasn't that good. This level of pitching is too much for him. And I saw that happen with so many guys, right? So many guys that were highly thought of, every publication saying this guy's going to come in and start as a freshman. No one said that about me, but I ended up starting in center field and leading off as my first game of the year, my freshman year. And that's because I had a really good approach. I wasn't going to wow you with hitting balls off the wall or out of the park, but I was going to spray line drives, hit for high average, walk at a high rate, steal bases, and then play lockdown defense in center field. And I tell my clients this, but the way I won the center field job is every single day in BP, if I wasn't hitting, I was running balls down like a madman in center field at 100%, going after everything, because I wanted the coaches to know this guy is a huge advantage in center field. Like, this guy is way better than anyone else we have in center field. And he's got great range. He's got great routes. Like, I credit my dad with that. I mean, he taught me at a young age how to, not only get good routes, but also how to not coast after the ball, sprinting at 100%. And it was really just a different. I mean, my uncle, who was a scout for a long time, he told me in high school that I could have, I was obviously really skinny, but if you had put me in center field in AA right then, you wouldn't have been able to, you wouldn't have been like, oh, what's that guy doing? He would have been, he said you would have fit in AA defensively right away in center field. So I mean, that was one of my better skills, was my center field defense. And I wanted to make sure my loudest tools were seen every single day. So if you're a player out there, it's going on to campus this fall, or maybe your fall's already done, do something every day to get your coach's attention, man. Like I didn't love being gassed after every single practice. I didn't love like running full sprints for an hour and a half every day in practice, but I knew if I wanted to get in the lineup and I wanted to get a coach's attention, I had to make crazy plays in BP in center field. And I'd make a play against the wall, running full speed, crashing to the wall, and I'd hear the coaches being like, "Yeah, that boy, Rennie, that a boy." And so I knew, okay, they're watching. I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm going to make it so there's no question that he's our center fielder. And that's what a lot of and this is what happens with a lot of kids. And I'm getting on my soapbox now, but I've seen this as a player and I've seen it as a coach. A lot of kids get to the college environment and they're now surrounded by, again, in high school, they were the stud. And now they're surrounded by all the studs. These guys are all very equally skilled. And they don't want to be the guy that stands out. They don't want to be the guy doing too much or working too hard. And what you'll see is that there will be guys on your team that'll be like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing that? Why are you working so hard? Like, they will literally say that. Because it's making them look bad. Well, man, if you're doing that, they're going to expect us to do it. Okay, we'll be a better team. Like, that's my point. You guys have heard me talk about this, but in college baseball, the teams that win, the best teams, they have upperclassmen that hold the rest of the team accountable. They're not the upperclassmen that are like, oh, yeah, just slack off and don't do much. Because the coaches have to set the standard. The coaches have to set the standard. But if you don't have upperclassmen that are like in the clubhouse saying, dude, like, what was that today? Like, zero effort. Or you're in conditioning and one of your guys who you're going to depend on that year is not making the times. You don't have a guy that would jump them. I'll say it straight up. I was the guy in conditioning where if we had a guy who I knew was going to be someone we depended on that year and he wasn't making the times, I would call him out in front of the team. And some of my other really close friends still to this day were the same way. It was like, we're not putting up with that. You're a Division I athlete and you can't make the conditioning time. That's not a physical problem. That's you up here not being tough at all. And if you're a guy that's going to be someone that's going to come in tough situations for us this year on the bullpen or as a starter or a position player, you better be tough enough to just make the conditioning time so the rest of us don't have to run extra laps. Right? So if you don't have upperclassmen that are willing to push guys to work harder instead of like making excuses because, oh, he's going to be a starter this year, he's fine, then you're not going to have as good a year as you could. Eugene, Trump is going to get rid of the income tax. Let's go tariffs. Hey, I don't know anyone. Listen, whatever you think politically, is there anyone against getting rid of the income tax? I mean, come on, right? I hope so, Eugene. That would be sick. I hope so. I hope it actually goes through. I'm a little bit doubtful that it will happen. But hey, hey, we're in this together, man. Let's hope for the best. Let's hope it happens. Wally, Kyle, I bet your style of playing passion elevated others' play. Scouts and recruiters love that. Probably extended your career for sure. Yeah, I mean, I was lucky, Wally, because I grew up with a dad who was a GM and a front office guy and who played professionally himself. So, I mean, he knew I was a speed player. I was not the biggest. I'm basically 5'10". In college, I was like 155 pounds, 153 pounds when I walked on campus. So he knew, like, you're not going to wow guys in BP. Like, you hit line drives, but you're not the guy when you hit BP, they're like, holy cow, this guy's got to be in our lineup. So he was like, you gotta make and he told me this my whole life, but like your speed has to play in every aspect of the game. It's got to play on defense. It's got to play offensively. It's got to play on the base paths. So I bunted for hit. I was an elite bunter. I used my speed. I was an elite runner. So I'm going to be a good base at bunt guy. I see so many kids now that are really good runners. They can't bunt for a hit. And I'm like, in pro ball, every year, once I got traded from the Atlanta Braves, every year in the Milwaukee Brewers spring training, they would have the base hit bunt leaders on a sheet. I was so proud of that. There was home run leaders, this leader. I actually led the organization in hitting in 2016 too, so I was pretty proud of that. But I always was like tops in base hit bunts. It was like the next closest guy was like 12, and I had like 23 in a year, 25. And think about it. If I bunted 25 times for hits, I probably got thrown out 5 or 6 times, maybe. So I was hitting like 800 on base hit bunts. Do you think that pads your stats some? I told guys, like, in college, you get 5 extra hits. That's worth 25 points in your batting average. You get 10 base hit bunts in a college year, and let's say you have 250 at bats. So 10 base hit bunts is 4 points a hit. So you're basically you're getting 40 points on your batting average. So if you hit 290, you're hitting 330 now. And guys don't do it. But to your point, Wally, that was, I'm sure some guys didn't like that I did that, but it was always very difficult for me to see guys mentally soft, guys that could not push themselves. And maybe that's not their fault. Maybe it's how they were raised or whatever. But to me, if you were going to be a guy on our team, you better be able to make conditioning times. That's the least you could do. Right. And, guys that are not in bad shape, but just soft, man, soft. And you see it. I hate to be the old guy yelling at the clouds, but like when I came back coaching at Georgia Tech, you saw more and more of that. And I'll give you an example. One of my really close friends was also coaching with me. That both of us were back from professional baseball. We were done playing. And so we were coaching with the team. And our Friday guy, opening night against, mid-major from the Northeast, so we should win this, goes like 4 1/3 innings, gets knocked out. We have to come get him. And, Coach Hall said, he was upset with how he pitched, right? Like, sorry, you want to be the Friday guy, you're going to be held to a very high standard. And, he's pouting in the tunnel. And my buddy, who was like maybe the toughest competitor I ever played with, goes in there and he's like, hey, what's going on? Like, what's wrong? And the kid said, man, just nothing's ever good enough for them. Nothing's ever good enough for DH and these guys. And he looked at him and said, dude, you're the Friday guy at Georgia Tech. Like, if you want low expectations, go play somewhere else. You're the Friday guy at Georgia Tech. Against this team, you should be going into the 7th inning. And so it was just like, guys like, me and my buddy who's on here sometimes, it's very hard for us to even like put up with that. Because it's just like, dude, you're just making excuses for yourself and you're not taking accountability for the fact that you did not pitch well. You did not pitch well. But that's becoming more and more common. I think in part because a lot of kids are kind of just raised in a softer way. They're not held accountable. Excuses are made for them. You guys have all been around those parents and say, man, the coach just doesn't like him. He should be playing, man. These coaches just don't know what they're talking about. And it's like, well, you've done that 3 times now with, so like maybe there's an issue. But it's becoming a bigger problem. In the programs that are really good about cutting that out and cutting that from the team, like their team's just going to be better for it. Like if you have the toughest mental team in the country, you're going to be successful. Play to your strength always. That's right, MSM. Okay, how much motivation was there for midweek games versus weaker opponents? I'll tell you this, man. I never played a game where it was like, man, we're just playing. First of all, in Georgia, you're playing Georgia Southern, was always really good. I mean, in my sophomore year, they had 2 first-rounders, Victor Roach and Chris Beck. I mean, Georgia Southern's always nasty. Georgia State's always good. Kennesaw State's always nasty. Mercer's always good. So in the state of Georgia, like, yeah, are they not an ACC team? But like, they're almost just as good. And I mean, our motivation was like, dude, it's a midweek game. Let's put up 15 in 4 innings and like let the backups play, and coach will take us out and we can wear our turfs and just like chill in the dugout. That was our plan. That's how we motivate ourselves. It's like, let's make it so bad. And the team I played with my 3 years, we had 2 of the years we were one of the best offenses in the country. So like our goal was, let's just beat the ever living crap out of them so we can get out in the 5th or 6th inning and chill, put our turfs on. But I don't, to be honest, John, I don't get the guys are like, well, they just did. I think it was a midweek game and they just weren't really motivated. I'm like, you get to play baseball in the Division I level in college. And you care about making the NCAA tournament, right? So every game you need to approach with the same mentality. So to me, it's like, it's hard for me to even think about what you're saying, because to me, it's like, how are you not motivated to play the game? Every game I played in my entire career, and that was like, almost 700 in professional baseball. Every time I went up there and lined up on the line for the national anthem, I had butterflies. Like I could not wait to play. I hated rainouts. Like was it nice every once in a while? Sure. But like, I just so looked forward to playing the game. I just loved playing the game. And like, I definitely would be one of those guys who, like, if I had the chance, I would just play the rest of my life. Like, that's how much I enjoyed it. I could just do it every day. Now that's not great for family and little kids and stuff like that, but like that's how I look at the game. I mean, it was just, I loved it. I still love it. I mean, this is why I do this, because I don't get to play anymore. And I don't have any regrets about my career. I think maybe some things could have gone differently, but like the fact that I don't get to play anymore, like I feel that all the time. It's tough for me to watch Major League games just because it's like I was so used to being connected to the game so intricately, and now you're kind of on the outside looking in, and it's just different. I really enjoy watching college baseball. I still watch Major League Baseball, just not nearly as much as I used to. And for what I do, I mean, I'm involved with college baseball every day. So, but yeah, man, I mean, I could have played till I was 100 years old. Local kid here in North Florida committed to Kennesaw. The kid throws gas. Kennesaw, man, Jonathan, welcome to the chat, man. Yeah, Kennesaw's getting some really good arms. I saw him play last year against Georgia Tech, and they had, I think, 3 or 4 freshmen come out in a row that were all sitting like 92, 94 and throwing strikes, good off speed. Kennesaw is going to be nasty this year, I think. I think Kennesaw's, if the offense is good enough, like their pitching staff should be really good. I think they're going to make a lot of noise, may even be a regional team. So, calling it here now, I think Kennesaw, regional team. Cardboard, long story, multi-sport athlete, has been to 2 practices since mid-September. I had a player's uncle who was his coach reach out last night, say he is coming off a huge loss for his last game of his 8th grade year, and he needed a week off to decompress after his mom said he'd be at practice last night. He was seen at the high school basketball game last night while we practiced. Yeah, and so that's red flag, right, Cardboard? Because one, it's a complete lie. An 8th grader, can you think of one game in your 8th grade life that you came off of a tough last game, and you're like, I don't want to play for a week. And then it's obviously a lie because they're saying, oh, he'll be at practice tonight, and then he's not. Right. And so that what you find more and more, and I deal with this working with clients, and our advisors do as well. Sometimes kids kind of like they're so used to making excuses and just getting away with it that when I say, dude, it's been a week, like, you're fine. Or, yeah, it snowed 3 days ago, but why aren't you practicing yet? Why aren't you back to practicing? And they'll say things like, oh, well, the weather was tough yesterday. And I'm like, okay, but like, your goal is to be a Division I baseball player, right? You got to do this. You got to work hard even when it's tough. That's the difference between a guy who goes to D1 and doesn't. Is the guy, when the weather's tough, he still goes and gets work in. He finds a way to get better. He doesn't take the day off. That's what I try to tell these kids, man. It's like, if you can just create a habit of working your tail off every day, you will be successful. Your reaction says it all. Yeah, this type of pandering is on a whole other level. Yeah, that's right, man. That's right, Cardboard. Well, even a close friend of his who is on the team told me to let him go. Yeah. I mean, again, it's almost one thing. It's tough in middle school, right? Because it's not like super serious yet, but you want them to start getting in that serious mindset and understanding that mindset shift from like middle school to high school when it does become really serious. And you don't want that impacting the rest of your team. So, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, me personally, I just have a conversation with the mom or whoever it is and say, listen, like, I want him to play, but there's a commitment here. And if that commitment is breached, like, he can't be on the team. So they know up front what the expectations are. And you say, listen, like, that's take it or leave it. That's what I would do. Anyway, guys, I gotta run, but thanks for all the questions and the conversations today. Obviously, we're getting close to college baseball, so going to be exciting. We're going to be covering a lot of that content, talking about recruiting as that starts to speed up as well, and maybe some more news coming out. Again, if you're looking for help in recruiting, scan that QR code to work with us, fill out the form, and one of our advisors or myself will meet with you, talk about what we do, where we think you're at right now in the process, and how